is a very interesting time of year for Jewish community leaders. Now, there are reasons for this that you'd expect, and there are reasons for this that you would not expect. The reason you'd expect, of course, is our high holy days. From pledge cards to ushers, from pipe and drape to round challahs, there are innumerable details we must tend to only at this time of year. Now, the reason you wouldn't expect is everything that comes after Yom Kippur. Many of us, especially our Shabbat morning regulars, are looking forward to our observance of Sukkot. And some of us, especially our minyanaires, are looking forward to our observance of Hoshana Rabbah, when we do 7 special processionals with our lulav and etrog. And many of us are looking ahead to Simchat Torah and how we might celebrate that holiday differently this year. As if that weren't already enough, there's even more that comes after our holiday season ends, and that's the launch of what feels like another new year, a year of programming, holidays, religious school, and community celebrations. Us Jewish community leaders, when we have a corner of our minds that isn't focused on the immediate tasks ahead, are thinking about how we want to keep the momentum of our holidays going. So along those lines, I want to bring to us today a very soft launch, perhaps it's more of a teaser, of the core piece of our adult education program in the coming year. We're calling it the weekly warm-up. It will be a study of our weekly Torah portion presented as a preparation, as a warm-up for Shabbat. When the class begins, it'll probably be about an hour in length, and of course it will be full of lively and interactive discussion. This teaser today will be much shorter, and of course the rabbi's sermon is not a format involving interactive discussion, but I do hope that our learning together this morning will inspire questions and curiosities, thoughts and opinions that we share with one another at Kiddush and throughout our Shabbat afternoon. So as we begin, even before we open the Chumash and look at the Parasha, I want to give some acknowledgments and gratitude to 3 of my teachers who have inspired and led me to study Torah in the ways that we will study in our weekly warm-up class. First, to Rabbi Mark Borovitz, Rabbi Emeritus of Beit Teshuvah, who taught me that Torah study is a spiritual practice and who led by example in his diligent learning of the weekly Parasha. Second, to Rabbi Paul Steinberg, who was my teacher and colleague at Beit Teshuvah and is now a Northern California leading congregation Kol Shofar. He led by example in his teaching methods, making study of the weekly Parasha both profound and accessible. And third, to Rabbi Dr. Avi Havivi, who taught me the value of a style of Torah learning called Bikkiyut, which is often translated as overview, but what it gets at is competency, literacy, fluency, the feeling of expertise that can help us feel that Torah truly belongs to us, is our personal inheritance and heritage. So we'll start our learning today with Bikkiyut, with an overview with an eye towards building literacy and fluency. Looking at our combined portion today of Nitzavim-Vayeilech, there are so many sayings, teachings, and special features that come from this parasha. And because we read it each year right before Rosh Hashanah, it's easy for us to blink and miss them, but not this year. So here we go. Now take a deep breath, keep taking deep breaths. This is going to be quite a list. So we'll start chapter 29, verse 13 of the book of Deuteronomy. If you want to, we'll follow along with your eyes in the Chumash, page 1166. And it's sentence 13, and I'll read it in English. I make this covenant with its sanctions, not with you alone, but both with those who are standing here with us this day before the Lord our God, and with those who are not with us here this day. So God's making God's covenant, not just with those who were here at the time that the Torah was, that is recorded in our Torah portion today, but with future generations. So that means that at this time the covenant was made, we were included. The covenant was made with us. Now moving right along to chapter 29, verses 27 and 28. The bottom of the Hebrew on page 1168 in our Eitz Chaim, we see 2 special features that are in the Chumash that are also present in the Torah scroll. We've got a large lamed, and we've got nikudot, or dots, over 2 different words in verses 27 and 28. Now, there is a wealth of interpretation about what this means. There are many possible correct answers, and I did look, and I found absolutely no consensus on which is best. So if we had an hour, we'd talk more about it, but now we can just get curious. So moving right along again to chapter 30, verse 12, and you'll see that this overview, it inspires further discussion. There are so many questions that we're asking in our heads and not answering, and that's part of the feature of the Bikkiyut level study. But so there's so much more. Chapter 30, verse 12, the top of page 1171. And this was read so beautifully by Daphne this morning from our Torah scroll. It is not in the heavens that you should say, and meaning Torah is not in the heavens that you should say, who among us can go up to the heavens and get it for us and impart it to us that we may observe it? And neither is it beyond the sea that you should say, who among us can cross to the other side of the sea and get it for us and impart it to us that we may observe it? No, the thing, meaning the Torah and its commandments, is very close to you, in your mouth and in your heart to observe it. So this phrase is referenced throughout Jewish tradition. There's a notable Talmudic story in which it plays a big part in the punchline, again, for discussion at a later time, because there is so much more overview to do. This is why I said keep taking deep breaths, where we're getting towards the end. Page 1172. This is one of the most well-known sayings and concepts in Jewish tradition. I've put before you life and death, blessing and curse. We're reading from verse 19. Choose life, if you and your offspring would live by loving the Lord your God, heeding God's commands, and holding fast to God. So this idea of choosing life, absolutely central in not just Jewish tradition, but I think in how we understand and live our tradition on a moment-to-moment basis. And now, last and certainly not least, the idea of where our practice of reading the Torah every Shabbat and every year comes from is found in chapter 31, verses 9 and 11, page 1174. So verse 9, Moses wrote down this teaching and gave it to the priests, sons of Levi, who carried the ark of the Lord's covenant, and to all the elders of Israel. And Moses instructed them as follows: every seventh year, the year set for remission at the Feast of Booths, so our custom is a little bit different today. But verse 11, when all Israel comes to appear before the Lord your God in the place that God will choose, you shall read this teaching aloud in the presence of all Israel. This is where our practice and concept of Torah reading comes from. And if you look at the very bottom of the page in the little gray box, that's what I call the gray box commentary, or it's called Halacha L'Maaseh, edited by our very own beloved Rabbi Elliot Dorff, one of the most prominent rabbis here in the Los Angeles area. And he explains a little bit more detail about how these verses lead to our practice of studying Torah throughout the year. And so that's a lot, and that's this week's Bikkiyut. Every time I study Torah in this Bikkiyut style, I renew my appreciation for how, when we know what's in our Torah, we know where our traditions come from, and that empowers us to take ownership of our spiritual heritage and our identity as Jews. It's good stuff. But of course, we don't stop there, and we can't stop there. We have too many questions. As foundational as it is to develop literacy, this Bikkiyut style is not considered the pinnacle of Jewish learning. That distinction is reserved for an approach to Torah learning known as Iyun, or in-depth. I would say the primary characteristic of Iyun is multiple correct answers. Now, that's different from every answer is correct, whatever you say is correct. There is certainly such a thing as an incorrect interpretation. But Iyun allows us to bring our unique selves, our unique perspective to our study of Torah, and to interpret through the lens of our own thought and our own experience. Now, the Iyun that I want to focus us on today, and think of this as a springboard for your own personal study and reflection, is a particular phrase that shows up 3 times in this week's Torah portion. Chapter 31, verse 6, 7, and 23, if you want to look that up. Now, it also shows up in the special psalm that we recite at this time of year, Psalm 27, which leads up to and follows our days of awe. And also, a quick and important sidebar, thanks to my teacher and colleague, Rabbi Jay Rosenbaum, for bringing my attention to this phrase when we learned together years ago. And so this phrase is chazak ve'ematz, and we read it a couple of times in our Torah portion this morning, in our reading this morning. The chazak ve'ematz, which translates as be strong and resolute, or be strong and of good courage. In our Torah portion, Moses urges the people of Israel to be strong and of good courage as we cross over into our holy land, and Moses urges Joshua to be strong and of good courage as he takes over leadership of the Jewish people. When we recite Psalm 27, we tell ourselves and one another to be strong and resolute as we cross over from one Jewish year to the next. So what's the connection? I think all of us know that change is difficult, and change is even more difficult when it involves taking on more responsibility. Each time we circle around to the high holidays again, we arrive at our days of awe with one more year of life experience under our belt. We are richer and wiser by exactly 1 year, filled with that year's joy and pain, sorrow and celebration. We have one more year of experience as human beings, one more year of knowledge. So every year we are more responsible to ourselves, to our community, and to the Jewish people, simply because we have one more year of wisdom. And that's why we must be strong and resolute as we take on that new level of responsibility each year, to teach our young people, to support our community with our time, effort, and resources, to speak with awareness and with kindness to the people that we meet, and to find moments of meaning as we move through our mundane and profound life experiences. As we continue through the coming days and weeks to recite Psalm 27, may we be strong and of good courage, as we look ahead not just to our holidays, but to the coming year with all the blessings it will bring. And in the coming year, may we find strength and courage as we study Torah together as our Adat Shalom community. Shabbat Shalom.